They say if you read the marks on the child, they'll lead you all the way to dry land.
Dry land's a myth.
Well, some still believe. They say the smokers even got an eye out for her.
Well then, we better keep it to ourselves.
Welcome to the Mad Max Minute presents Waterworld H2O minutes at a time. I'm Rick.
I'm Julia.
And today we're talking about minutes 15 and 16. This chunk begins with the banker declaring the mariner's dirt pure, and it ends with Nord getting some insider information from a hydroholic. Our special guest this week, because it is an episode that is divisible by 4, and if all calendars were perfect, this would be the last week of the month, but it's not, so we're just going to go with it anyway. We're talking to Dave Pallas from 5 Minutes of Mystery. Dave, how you doing?
I'm excited to be here. I am actually legitimately excited to talk about Waterworld.
You sat down and watched not just the 2 minutes I gave you. You watched the entire 3-hour cut of this movie, and you sent me a few messages over the course of the evening, but I want to get the pure emotion flowing out of you from this experience.
I approached it as because I think I've only probably watched this the first time before back in the Blockbuster days, and I was a child, so I didn't get any of the actual outside the action scenes. So I'm watching it as an adult. I'm watching it as a guy who understands the polar ice caps are a problem, that they're really melting, that we are having heat wave problems, and as a guy who gets Mad Max because you've also done a podcast about Mad Max. That's why we're here. So I looked at it from all those perspectives, and I think Costner is doing his best. I just feel like the Mariner, they want the Mariner to feel like Mad Max, but I think the fact that we do not have the actual Mad Max movie, we don't have why Max became a cop to the Outlander of, just a wastelander man. I think that's the biggest thing missing with the Mariner. He just comes out of nowhere. He shows up with dirt. That's where the movie just starts. And we're like, this man is 40 years old or something. He looks weathered, both by the sun and by his age. What has his life been? How is he, where has he come from? How has he not gotten there? So that's a little quant. But what makes up for it is Dennis Hopper immediately goes into the pantheon of villains right next to Morton Joe, next to Toe Cutter, next to Humongous. So it's that's great. We have an amazing villain, and every time Dennis Hopper's on screen, you can't help but just smile and be like, man, this guy was one of the all-time great villains of cinema. Love to see him there. And the one thing that definitely does make this movie entertaining that I was interested in watching was the action scenes, the stunt work. You don't get to see that much in movies now. It's all covered with CGI. And you could easily tell I'm watching a multi-million-dollar stunt show on screen, and I'm following it. It's not nonsense. They get these, and then here come the jet skis. Boom, over here, they're shooting. He's pulling the boat. You see the boat turning. The camera work direction was amazing. It's not like sometimes you see cheap action movies now where it's just shaky cam and a lot of CGI nonsense to try and fill it in. So I am honestly happy that I saw this film. I gave it the most fair shake, and I'm 80% of it, I was okay with. I was okay with it. I give it a 7.3 out of 10.
Okay. A couple of weeks ago, maybe earlier, when we were talking about ratings for this movie, 7 out of 10 sounds in the range that we rated it when we started, right?
Yeah, I think I gave it a 6.5. That seems like a pretty average range. On the scale of people who enjoy this movie, I think, Dave, you are right smack dab there in the middle. This movie is for you.
Yeah. I feel like this movie, I'm glad I watched the 3-hour cut, but it's at the same time, I don't need to see it again. If anything, I would just like to watch the action scenes. So it's not a movie where you go, oh, I want to know more about that. No, everything was explained to me. I get the map. I get the language. I get everything the science guys said. So it's not like I need repeat viewings, but I am glad I watched it. I am glad I actually watched this long cut. I felt like they didn't have to worry about trying to make it tight. They were just let it flow. I think the biggest qualms of shots I had was they didn't know how to end scenes, so they just had like Kevin Costner snarl. He would go back to the boat, and they would just do a helicopter shot of him piloting the boat, and that's the end of the scene. And what sucks is you could tell like that day they filmed him doing it, they didn't have the women there, you know. So it's like they would be like arguing with him, like, "Why don't you do this? Why are you being such a jerk?" And he's like, "Ugh." Goes off, and then it's a shot where it's like the girls aren't there, like they should be right standing next to him, but there's just him on an empty boat, you know. That and maybe like later when you're talking about it, he gets shot and like there's really no consequence, so he just I got dinged. Hey, do you want to go underwater? Like that's it. Like that's the end of the scene. He gets dinged by Dennis Hopper, then they go underwater, and you're kind of like, oh yeah, he took a bullet in the back and just kind of shrugged it.
That's definitely one of the things that I'm looking forward to talking about, because it's not just that he got dinged, like it's bullet through his torso. It went in his back, came out his right, and it's just an open wound. And then the smokers burn the trimaran, and he has to hang out underwater, which is, I know, something, Julia, that you are going to have a lot to say about. The rescue breathing scene is a whole other thing.
He's part fish. We have to allow part of it. A tic-tac amount of suspension of disbelief, Julie. Just a smidge.
Yes.
Like the smidge. But I agree. But a smidge, because he's like Fishman. Fishman from Mysterious Place. With the blood, the water, and all the nonsense, you only see that fish monster once.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a Chekhov's gun that feels it needs to get fired one more time. I went out there, giant fish comes, and he goes, oh, they're sleeping now. Yeah, but there's like explosions. Like, that's not going to wake up the giant Resident Evil 4 lake monster?
Man, those whale fins, they do not do enough in this movie.
Wasn't there a scene? Maybe you're gonna get to that later, but it's like there were like shark fins going underneath the boat.
Those are just sharks.
They were just sharks for the sake of sharks.
Those are trained sharks that the smokers used to track down bleeding people.
Oh,
which is a
Oh,
whole
wait,
other
really?
thing. Yeah.
Oh,
The giant fish
What?
that tries to eat Kevin Costner, that's something called a whale fin, and it's
Okay.
heavily featured at the beginning of the spin-off comic books. The sharks that track a bleeding Kevin Costner are just regular trained sharks, and they're probably a holdover because in the earlier Peter Rader script, the pirates, which are not specifically called smokers, have sharks that have ropes tied around them, and they release them from cages on the side of the boats to go after people. And then they just
Great.
crank them back into the cage when they're done eating.
I really do wish we did see that, because I love that. I honestly, I love that. I love the idea that that's how they'll track you. But I missed it. Like, that went over my head. Like, I was like, oh, cool, sharks. Are they going to come back? And I was like, oh, there's never been a shark attack. And I love that. It's a shame that didn't get really put in.
But there's plenty of time to talk about sharks later on down the road, because we need to focus in on the actual set of minutes that we're talking about. We're at the bank here on the Atoll, and we are sitting down with the banker. He, at the very tail end of last week's episode, put a little bit of dirt in his mouth, and he tasted it. And at the very top of today's episode, he states that he is tasting pure dirt.
Pure dirt.
And that the Mariner has brought in 3.2 kilos, which works out to a little over 7 pounds.
It's good. That's a good chunk of dirt change.
Yeah, that's a good little pile of dirt.
Yeah.
I have questions about the term pure dirt. And I didn't look anything up because I just thought of this now.
Mm-hmm.
What does that even mean? I mean, dirt is dirt.
I think what it could have been is maybe people try to bring dirt, but maybe it's like what they find some dirt. Maybe it's like dried oil. Maybe it's excrement that's been dried and caked. Essentially, they're trying to like cut the product by like mixing it with other refuse.
That's an interesting idea because that's what the Atoll does.
Mm-hmm.
Is they use compost of all sorts to supplement what dirt they do have to grow things. So that might be a decent trade of people, cutting dirt. And this is not cut.
When I heard the phrase pure dirt, the thing that I thought of first was the old, I guess it's a saying or some sort of practice, the idea that the army rolls through and they salt the earth so that nothing can grow. And that led me on a little bit of a tangent where I learned about salinity in the soil and ways that salinity can rise and fall. There was a really cool Reddit post that I found on r/AskScience where someone asked very specifically about a scene from The Simpsons where Homer destroys Flanders' garden and salts the earth so that he can't grow anything. So one of the posters, a guy named Towden, he commented that the way plant roots work is through osmosis. And the whole idea is that when there is moisture in the soil, the osmosis seeks to equalize the moisture between the soil and the plant roots. And so if there's a lot of salt in the soil, that is going to absorb a lot of the water and pull the water out of the plants. Mm-hmm. So this salt builds up over time. When you're just constantly planting and reaping and planting and reaping, water goes in, it evaporates, leaves the salt behind. And too much salt in the ground is a bad thing for plants. And so the way you get rid of that extra salinity is you flood the field. And the salt goes into the water, and when the water flows away, it takes the salt with it. That's why one of the best growing situations for avoiding over-salinized dirt are the step terrace type farms that you see in Southeast Asia, and rice paddies and things like that.
Right, because they're in the presence of lots of fresh water.
Yep, and it's constantly flowing.
Ah.
Okay, so along those lines of salting the earth, it does seem that any dirt, even dirt that the mariner pulls up from the bottom, would be heavy with salt because it lived in a saltwater environment. And as he dries it out, he's not removing the salt, he's just removing the water.
Which tells me that he might have a way of, I guess, washing the dirt that he brings up from the bottom of the ocean. Some sort of treatment that he's able to put it through that pulls that salt out. Like maybe he'll have a little bucket full of dirt, he pours some fresh water into it, waits for all the sediment to settle, and then he skims the water out or something.
Yeah. The banker, he does this by taste.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps if there's too much salt in dirt, maybe that's something you can taste. I mean, salt is a very distinctive taste. So maybe we're talking about the levels of salt in dirt that you can taste. If it's not salty, then it's good for growing.
Mm-hmm.
An entire world living on salt water, everyone would become like experts in saltiness. Like everyone's tongues would like be like, this is the world we live in. Your tongue has to get used to like eating, tasting salt constantly.
Constantly.
I'm willing to bet that when someone on Waterworld puts something in their mouth and it doesn't have a salt content, it stands out like a bright flash of light, red flags, alarm sounds, like, holy cow, the salt taste isn't there.
Yeah. Imagine when he ate that tomato. Like when he cut that tomato and he's eating it, that had a taste like nobody's business. Or even the limes. Like imagine be like, ooh, like a sour flavor, sour sweet. What a difference. Yeah.
I brought up the idea when it was on screen of the drifter eating these limes straight and how weird that was. And Julie, I think you brought up that no, they don't have a diverse range of flavors to choose from. So it's just different enough to be pleasant.
Yeah. Oh, he didn't get long to cherish that. He didn't get long at all.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the one bite.
He got smoked.
In the novelization, the mariner actually shows up with a bit more dirt than he does here in the movie. It says, 7.9 kilos, the banker whispered. His eyes were wide with greed and amazement. Pure. A gasp came from the crowd of atollers. Long ago, gold and silver had been considered precious. In Waterworld, gold and silver had no practical use. Both would sink like the stones they were. But dirt was something wonderful.
Okay, they're not stones. I have problems with those statements. The reason why gold is so useful is, and I don't even know a lot about gold, but I know that it conducts electricity. Like really, really well. These people have electricity. The mariner generates his own electricity. The atoll has their own electricity. You can't tell me gold isn't useful.
And people still, once in a while, wear forms of jewelry. Like little bits, like a necklace here, maybe a bracelet. So, no, there is some vanity. People do like to put a little thing. Because you see, like, sometimes people will wear, like, what looks to be like a chip of aluminum, like from a soda can. And so it's like, no, they would like a little gold emblem. So no, it's not 100% malarkey.
It's not completely worthless.
Yeah.
It's heavy, sure, but it serves purposes, yeah.
I think the important thing about gold and silver not being used as currency in this world anymore is that you can't eat or drink it.
Yeah.
And you can't grow anything in it. This banker, this is really the first time we've seen him, and he is played by Jack Kaler. Sometimes he's credited as Jack Keeler, so I think that H might be a little bit more subtle, but he, according to IMDb, is best known for Lost Highway from 1997, Fever Pitch from 2005. He was in Men in Black 2 in 2002, and then it rounds out the top four with his role here as the banker in 1995. He has a extensive IMDb listing, which makes it very frustrating that his online biography is so succinct. Jack Kaler was born on May 22nd, 1946 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He worked as a waiter in New York until he decided to pursue a career in theater at the age of 24. In 1982, he was admitted into the Actors Studio. After a while, he moved to Los Angeles. Keller has 168 actor credits listed on IMDb, beginning in 1983 with his role as a gas station attendant in Strange Invaders, and he's not done yet, with 3 roles listed in 2020 and another one currently filming. As far as being connected to Kevin Costner, Jack Keller was in Wyatt Earp. He played a guy named Bob Hatch.
I remember him mostly as the dude's landlord in Big Lebowski. Hey, dude, I have my show tonight. And he does that funny art theater. They're all like in the... I love like Walter and him and the dude are in the theater. They're talking about like... I think that's what they're gonna like do the switch or something with the money in the briefcase, and then we'll go to the In and Out.
It's crazy how much TV this guy has been in.
Yeah, right.
Everything from genre shows like The Magicians, and I guess The Man in the High Castle is also a genre show, but also just like procedurals. Like he was on at least one episode of NCIS Los Angeles. He was on Franklin and Bash, The Cleaner, Bones, The Mentalist,
24,
Cold Case.
Yeah.
I look at these and I'm like, oh wait, those are shows that Dave watches.
These are shows I watch. I don't remember him all these things. I think it's because he's so memorable to me, that scene, because it is his scene in Big Lebowski. The movie almost like stops for 2 minutes. It's like, no, watch this guy's theater performance. And you're like, what is this? And you're like, don't we have to like deal with the nihilists, dude? So I think that's why he's so memorable, because the movie, like, there's a whole thing. You know, we got Bunny, we got the nihilists, we got Walter, and then the movie just stops. It's like, all right, the guy go see his show tonight, and you're like, oh, this is so weird. What a quirky little man. Just be like, the rent's due, but can you also see my show?
And I love his portrayal of the banker. The idea that he's this, I don't want to call him shifty looking, but he's like a little squirrely.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that descriptor, squirrely.
I think it's a little bit of excitement, because, I mean, there's the whole scene you guys talked about the other weeks where it's just like he shows up and the enforcer and everyone's kind of like they're not up for doing trades, they're not up for doing stuff, until he goes, no, I got something you really want to see, I got dirt. So that's the only reason he would have got in. Like, he probably couldn't have bartered with anything else on his boat. And so I think probably the banker probably got woken up. He's probably just like dicking around, and the elders were like, we need this dirt, and you have to make sure the transaction goes well with this mariner. And so he's kind of like, ooh, like, and like the fact that we're going to talk about this, doesn't even know how to judge it. Like, he's not dealt with this amount of dirt. Like, maybe cups of dirt, maybe like dirt that was in a fish that someone ate and that got a little... I'm serious. Like, how else would you get dirt without being Fishman? And it would probably be like, you would catch something that ate something that was a bottom feeder. And so there would be some dirt in, like, kind of like when you eat a clam and sometimes there's a little dirt in it. That's like a quarter of an ounce of dirt at most you'd get in those little shellfish. Hell, what's her name? Helen. She even mentions, like, she does the concept of shell earrings he's got. She never saw them before, which is crazy. Like, no one even sees shells because, like, you don't really find them until you're on a beach or something, or you're picking through the ground.
You know those people that when you ask them about their job, they get really excited and they just love talking about it. He's one of those people.
Yeah.
He loves this so much.
One of the other things about the banker is that in the computer game that they made for this movie,
Gosh.
the real-time strategy game, he's one of the recurring characters. He comes back alongside the Enforcer and the Pream, and you have so many interactions with him, and the whole time he's just like, oh man, there's a atoll and we gotta wreck this place. We're gonna take their guns and we're gonna take their water. We're gonna take all their plants and stuff. And the idea of going out and destroying these other people fills him with so much glee as he gives you these missions. And at one point you bring back smoker weapons and he's like, oh man, look at these guns. And he's just like gleeful. You can watch all of the RTS videos on YouTube, and I would highly recommend doing it.
Right now I'm watching the SNES game. Is that what you're talking about? Or is it something else?
This is the Interplay real-time strategy game called Waterworld: The Quest for Dryland.
Oh my god.
Yeah. The NES and the Sega Genesis games have some primo music to them.
Okay.
But as far as raw performances are concerned, you've got to go with the Interplay game for sure.
I'm surprised we haven't watched that together yet.
I watched it just because it was 10-15 minutes worth of footage. It wasn't that long because it was a mid-90s game, so they could only pack so much information onto a compact disc.
Yeah.
I am watching clips of it. Wow. You're like controlling what looked to be like just cavemen. They're just like naked cavemen with like crossbows going around atolls shooting guys. Oh my gosh.
And the atolls that you go around are basically the same map. So you're just starting at different points on the atoll and going around and telling, okay, you squad of guys, shoot at that squad of guys, and then you wait for them to finish shooting.
Oh god.
You just keep moving. Strategy is in quotations.
Yeah, I'll take the SNES one, which was like just a platformer, and like they made Kevin Costner's hair like bright yellow blonde.
Yeah, it's a different look for him. Okay, so the banker says 3 point whatever kilos, and we cut to a shot of the mariner, and he's standing. There's, of course, a crowd gathered behind him because these people are nosy as all get out. And there's this lady off to the left who reaches out and touches his arm or something like that.
Yeah, what was that?
What are you doing, lady? Like, is she trying to make a personal connection or something?
It's definitely something off of his belt that drew our attention, but I mean, he's not really carrying anything. Okay, let's see. He's wearing a watch up here. Clearly, probably a broken watch, but he likes the light shine of it. A couple bracelets. But yeah, I don't know what's off of his belt that she finds so damn attracting.
Yeah, I'd like to think that she was trying to brush up against him. Oh, hello, rich man with all the dirt.
Yeah.
But what's important about this exchange is that the banker wants to know where all of this dirt came from. And this is where he mentions a new form of measurement. We learned from the drifter that you could say, oh, it's this many days away. But the mariner, he nods off to the west and he says that there was another atoll 30 horizons west. So I know we've already talked about how far you can see from the naked eye as far as how far away the horizon is.
Well, tell me.
In standard atmospheric conditions, for an observer with an eye level above sea level of 1.7 meters or 5 foot 7 inches, which is average, the horizon is at a distance of about 5 kilometers or 3.1 miles away. So the mentioned atoll is likely 150 kilometers or roughly 93 miles away.
Okay. That's gotta be a pain in the ass to try and measure. Like, you have to find a way to measure, because like if there's nothing to reference from, like you leave the atoll, you find a way to record like between when I leave this direction and I don't see the atoll anymore. That's one horizon. Cool. But then you're like, now when do I start recording like the next one? Like there's no hourglass, there's no...
Exactly. Unless you have some sort of measuring tool on your boat, you can't go by landmarks. That's not how the ocean works.
Yeah, and I don't know if any of these people record time. Like, is it daylight or is it nighttime? Is that all it is? Like, do they not say like? Because he says they, when he talked about the monster fish, he was like they're sleeping now, so he knows the sleeping times of the sea monsters of like when he's allowed to go down, whenever that is.
Well, humans, have been navigating large bodies of water for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
And much of that time, there was no longitude and latitude system. There were no clocks. There were no maps. And so they used the stars, obviously.
Yeah.
A huge part of it is navigating by the stars, but also math. If you know how long it takes you to go from the atoll to when the atoll slips over the horizon, now you have a time frame for the next part. If it takes you the same amount of time, then that's 2 horizons. I think that sailors, drifters, have a lot more math skills than they let on, than they show us in the movie. Because it's not really that important to us to actually show us them keeping their records. But without keeping those records, there's no way for them to know where they are.
Yeah. There's a huge gap in my knowledge when it comes to how to navigate by the stars. But I understand that that is a learned skill that has to be acquired.
Yeah.
And it's not something that I've devoted the time to learning how to do.
Right. You need to get Maui to teach you.
That's
how to
how it is.
wayfind.
I gotta get on the boat and hold my hand up and measure it against the stars, and then I can sing the song that they sing in the movie.
The song is the most important part. If you don't sing the song, then you can't find your way.
Mm-hmm.
I played an RPG where we were sailors and we sang shanties, but the shanties were also cursed.
Nice.
And so it was an in progress game. It's not complete. It's coming up like Kickstarter like next year. I played it like Gen Con Digital, and so like the people in a Zoom call, we were like this. We're in a Zoom call, and we sang each part. We sang a shanty. It was a real shanty. Like he looked up shanties, and then what we did was he essentially like then gave us conflicts while we're on our boat, and we had to refer to the shanty of like how would we solve this problem like the shanty is giving us. And you essentially gain experience by like writing the shanties down, which is like they're cursed, you're not supposed to, but stuff like that. Essentially, like one of the lines was them Spanish girls ain't got no combs. That was one of the lines in the shanty. Well, he had a mermaid fall onto the boat, but it wasn't like fun, sexy mermaid. It was like teeth gnawing mermaid, and she kept cursing at us in Spanish. And so one guy, he found fish bones that looked like a comb, and he essentially did the Jurassic Park bit, and then he tossed the fishbone comb over the edge, and then the mermaid, like with her teeth and claws, like launched off the boat into the ocean. We were like, "Oh, cool! We solved it with shanties. All right, cool."
That sounds kind of awesome.
Spanish ladies ain't got no combs. That sounds like something you'd hear at the Apollo. Be like, you haven't noticed? Spanish ladies, they don't have combs.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very excited. I told the guy, I said, yeah, like put me on the email list. Like when you put this thing on Kickstarter, I'm very excited to check it out. Roll some dice and be a sea shanty sailor.
That reminds me of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride where you're riding them and all the animatronic pirates are singing. You get that skull that talks about how dead men tell no tales, which is appropriate because the banker asks, okay, this atoll you're talking about, where did they get the dirt? And the mariner says, oh, they don't say. And this guy in the crowd pipes in because these folks are nosy. And he says, we heard about that place. They were all killed. And the mariner's like, well, yeah, that's why they didn't say where they got the dirt. They was all dead.
So the mariner just intimated that he stole the dirt from dead people.
Okay.
Everybody's okay with it.
There's no stealing from dead people in Waterworld.
Yeah.
And I know we've been over this before.
Exactly.
With the boat.
I took it legal.
It's fair game, but they dropped the subject just because he says that he took the dirt from dead people. They don't follow that up with, well, did you kill them?
Well, the banker assumes that it's smokers.
Yeah. I think the mariner is like more than happy to let that conversation die, because you're right, he doesn't want to keep answering questions like, how'd you get the dirt? How are you so easy to get the dirt? Like, can we see your ears? You know, like he doesn't want those lines of questions. So I guess he felt like if that's the answer they're looking for to like drop this conversation so I get my chits and like get out, then yes. Like, I guess that's what it is.
The Mariner should be really happy that the banker is not played by Steve Miller, because the list of potential aggressors would have been a lot longer. With the banker, you're like smokers, but Steve Miller would have been like smokers, jokers, midnight tokers,
You son of a bitch.
pickers,
I was
ritters, lovers, sitters.
Yeah, I was wondering where you were going.
Shut up.
That's a Rob Lumley level of like, let me get this joke out. Let me take you on a walk down a winding road for this joke. Jeez.
That was great.
Oh,
I'm sure there are plenty of factions out there, but as far as we've come to understand in this movie, smokers and slavers are the two troublemakers. Although, those slavers, they got some nice epoxy these days.
what is the one thing that, I mean, he talks about later, is it resin he says he needs? Because he keeps saying that.
Yep,
And
that's one of the things.
Why? Like, I never got that in the movie. I'm watching 3 hours. I never got what he's doing. I don't know what you need resin for in a future world.
I'm pretty sure it's for waterproofing.
Yeah, for the boat.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we will talk about it when we get to resin talk, but
All right.
Resin time. Resin time.
Hi, you're over
Do resin time.
Resin time.
Sorry.
can you make resin? And I'm guessing that you can out of human bodies.
Ooh.
Because I know you make glue from horse hooves.
And you can make soap out of human fat.
Yes, you
Fight
can.
Club taught me that.
Yes. So can you make resin, or what they pass off as resin, out of bodies?
Like, yeah, can you boil bones and marrow and stuff and make a pulp out of that? That's a very good question. We gotta try that.
The
Yeah,
slavers.
go for it, Dave.
I bet the
Gotta try it.
slavers
Try that.
hate the smokers. The slavers come across a atoll that was ravaged by the smokers, and they're like, look at all these dead bodies. So wasteful.
Yeah. But I mean, the vibe that you get, you know, in this world is just like, yeah, that trade, like we are at the end of that. I think it's got to be talked about. We are definitely at the end of like the boom of this world. Like, everyone's just gotten like nothing left, and like I said, like he sees dirt, and they don't know how to, like, he doesn't know how to like weigh that. What's the cost of it? And yeah, pure hydro does make sense, because it's like that is the primo of things.
Does it bother anybody else that there's not a pre-established metric?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, 100%.
First of all, it's not fair trade to the Mariner to not know what the trade rate is.
Yeah. Like, he's the banker.
He's
it is literally
making
his
it
job.
up.
Yeah, that is what the oddest thing is. You're right. He's not prepared for this.
Yeah. Since there's no set price for it because it's so rare, wouldn't that mean that it is more valuable than pure hydro? Because there is a set price for pure hydro.
Yeah. This atoll has a desalinator. It is one of the things that when you look around the atoll set, you've got these giant round steel spheres, and those are the desalinators for the atoll. They produce the clean water that people are able to drink and use to grow crops and things like that. You have in theory, limitless supply of pure hydro. You do not have a near limitless supply of dirt. So the fact that he's like, oh yeah, we'll judge it like pure hydro. No. You judge it for more than pure hydro.
So I'm totally on board with the Mariner wanting twice what it's offered him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know what a chit is worth to them. I don't know how it compares to, like, caps in Fallout or military ammunition in Metro 2033. But I think it is well within the Mariner's range of judgment, if that's even a phrase I can use, to say, no. Double that.
He sees the desperation in the elder's eyes.
Yeah.
Look at the elder. The elder's like looking like a hungry dog. And he's like, I know that guy standing behind the banker wants the dirt more than the banker cares.
Yeah.
And I got to make sure I plead to that guy, no, you're going to pay me twice, because I can see your eyes. I know you want this dirt.
The Mariner has all the power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of abuses that power. When the banker is dumping the now doubled chits into the jar,
Yeah.
the Mariner grabs the bag. Like, no, stop pouring. I'm just going to take the whole thing.
I love that move so
It's
much.
such a power. Yeah, because he knows. He knows he's won. You're right.
Yeah.
Just He's what?
I just want to say this elder, this one specifically, is the same guy that later on in this movie is going to be showing off to a crowd all the things that they find on the mariner's boat.
You're right.
This guy doesn't have a name. None of the elders have names. And so I've identified them based on where they kind of crop up. So this guy is the commerce elder, as far as I'm concerned. But he's so quiet and behind the scenes in this scene, and then he just goes off the rails in future minutes. I'm excited that we get to see him now because he's fun to watch later on. Grabbing the bag, because the mariner doesn't know how many chits are in this bag.
My thing is that it could be less
Exactly.
than the 124 chits that have been agreed upon. There could be less than that in the bag. And he's just like, no, I'll take the whole thing. And the deal's done. The deal's over. If he only got 110, well, that's the deal that you ended up making.
Yeah, exactly. If he's expecting 128 and these bags are in, multiples of 100, or if there are different colored or styled chits and these are the low price chits that he's going to use to pay out some of the payment, and then he's got higher value or lower value chits in another bag, he's maybe pouring out, 62 times 2 is 124. And so these are the low price chits. And so he's only going to shake out 4 chits, and then he's going to go for the 20 chit chips or something like that.
Yeah.
Rick's chits, everybody.
We only ever see chits on the atoll. I don't know if there is a standardized value to a chit. Can you go from one atoll to another?
No.
With chits?
No, I guarantee you can't.
Kind of like a casino then.
Yeah.
Sure. I think it's their currency. It is valued according to their economy.
This is like the 1920s with companies giving out coupons to their workers, and those coupons are only good at the company store.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going on, which means that he has to spend those chits here and now.
Mm-hmm.
There's no savings account.
Yeah.
Interesting.
This is my thought. I think a couple of generations ago, yes. I think there was, because I think they were excited to do business with other atolls. So I bet you they did promote, maybe they had certain letters printed on the chit, so you knew what atoll this came from. Oh, this came from the alpha, then this came from the beta one. They each had their own little names they came up with themselves. But now, since we are generations past and they're dying off or they're getting smoked, it's no, we can't let you just take these chits and go to somewhere else to do commerce. It's not worth the risk that you'll ever come back or they'll ever trade back to us. That you're right. Then now it's complete closed system. The chance of maybe is definitely gone.
It's just like in our economy. We live in New Hampshire, and the powers that be in New Hampshire, they want us to spend our money in New Hampshire on local businesses. Keep it in the New Hampshire economy. That is what is best for our economy, which then strengthens everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, now that things really aren't going that great for society as a whole, they want those chits. They want that to be traded within their own economy.
I like the idea of having chits because it allows you to go to different places on the atoll, and you don't have to have one centralized trading spot where everybody who comes into trade deals with one specific person and everybody gets cut out of that business. We mentioned as the mariner was coming in that there was a possibility that there were sex workers in the atolls. You could take chits and go to the company store that Helen runs and spend money there. You can go to certain boats and spend money there and hire services from people in the atoll in that way. I think it's a good system.
So you think this is a capitalist society as opposed to a socialist society where everything is centralized?
I guess, because I'm coming at it from a framework of someone who lives in a capitalist system.
Right.
You can't buy your way into an atoll, though. That's the one thing you can't do.
Yeah.
You're only allowed in if the recycling of bodies is allowing it. They've definitely found a way to say this amount of people can survive off of this amount of pure water.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one thing you can't buy. You can't buy, at least with this atoll, you definitely couldn't buy your way onto it.
Yeah.
Whereas it's funny that you cut to the deacon later. He's like, "Well, I gotta get more guys, and we gotta get more land and make more." And you're like, "Your thing is just like you're a wild and crazy guy." Like, and then he says, "He's like, whatever. They'll a month later, I'll deal with it down the line. Like they'll row." You're just like, "Man, you're crazy SOB." You got.
And I know the smokers, their society does have advantages of being more mobile. They have more fuel. They are larger. They have a psychopath leading them.
Yeah.
So they do have advantages that the Atoll doesn't. But I think the Atoll has done a good job of saying, okay, we can support 100 people. 100 people can live on this Atoll. And we are going to control who comes and goes. When resources are so scarce, what other options do you have than to be so exclusive?
Speaking of people acting crazy, when the mariner walks away from the banker and he cuts that path down the crowd, first of all, cutting a path through a crowd is pretty great. But then when they cut back to the banker and he picks up the bowl of dirt off the scales.
Oh my goodness. I think that's my favorite part of these minutes.
He's got that crazy grin and his cheeks are just popping in such a perfect way. And he's grinning, but it's not like a big grin. It's kind of like a small grin.
Yeah.
It's like laughing to himself.
Yeah, it does bring to mind like obsessiveness. Like he is so into this dirt. He's so excited to have it.
Yeah. In my notes, I say that he literally giggles.
Yes.
I mean, it's like he got out of, like they called him in. They said, we need you to do your job. And it's for like a really big deal. And he feels like, all right, like I did it. I got us the dirt. He got his chits. Like I think I'm pretty solid. And then,
Get the dirt.
and that-
Get the dirt.
and our elder over here, our commerce elder, like he is just like, he has a constant, I want to say nervous or worried face.
Yeah.
Because his eyes go, it goes Mariner dirt. Like he kind of flicks it back and forth. Like it's like his brain's thinking more about, I think that's what it is, Julie. I think his brain's thinking more about where did he get that dirt? Like he's like, it's too good to be true.
Yeah, I think so. I think he realizes that an individual who mysteriously has this much dirt, who now has that much money, is going to cause problems for the Atoll. There's no way this is not going to disrupt the peace in some way.
Yeah.
So leaving the banker behind, we cut to the trading barge and our first look at Jean Triplehorn as Helen, and her opening line for this movie is her she's saying the word dirt in an she doesn't believe what she's hearing, and I don't know the proper word to describe someone who says something in a way that insinuates that they don't believe it.
Suspicious.
I forgot the word.
Incredulous.
Yes, there we go.
I hate this. I hate this so much. I hate this moment. First of all, it's a close-up on Jean Triplehorn. She does not look good. Her makeup doesn't look good. She looks amazing. Her makeup looks awful. I am impressed by how neat and shiny her hair is. How on earth do they have clean hair? Hers is gorgeous. Anyways, that's not why I don't like it. This is our introduction to Helen. She is the co-star. And we get one line, no follow-up, super close-up, dirt. It's so dumb that there's no reason for it. She should get a better introduction than this.
Yeah, but then we cut to the barfly, and he's like, I have never seen purer.
Okay.
And it's just a great example that Helen is not only the store runner, she's also the bartender, and I guess the gossip taker. Because everyone is going to go to the bar, and they're going to gossip to the bartender, and so all information flows through Helen.
Yeah, that's very true.
Here's the new idea then. Maybe this will be a better intro for her. We watch the barfly come in, and it's a shot where we watch it wide, him coming in and saying like, Helen, you're not going to believe it. This guy walked in with dirt. And then it cuts to like her like turn around, and maybe she's like got plates, got cups, got something she's doing. She's like, you're pulling my leg or something like that line. And then it shows her like, I'm just doing my job, and I don't believe a damn thing you're saying, barfly. Maybe that'll be better. Like it turns, it's like her turning around, entering the scene more naturally rather than smack. Just cut to Helen on screen.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, you can see that. Any changes would have been better than this.
But yeah, you're right, because her hair looks not as... Her hair just doesn't look as luscious as it does later in the movie when she's, like, on the boat. She's got the wind in her hair and stuff. And then she gets a cut by Costner. Her hair, like, looks better in the end. Whereas when we first see her, right, it's just braided and just... it kind of looks a little flat. But you're right, yeah, you're right. Her face does look drier than usual, like, later down the line.
When we cut back to her after seeing the barfly atoller, she does have that look on her face. I described her in my notes as being agape, sitting there with her mouth hanging open, her hand hovering in front of her face as if the very idea of someone coming in with dirt is so ridiculous.
I think she's contemplating how much he got for trade and where he's going to spend it.
It's a good point.
He has little choice but to go to her place. For one, she's got water.
Yeah.
So I think she's anticipating that she is going to meet him and have to deal with his ridiculous amounts of currency.
I mean, if anything gives her something to do other than other than talk with the same barfly guy.
Yeah.
All day.
Someone else to talk to.
Yeah. And then we get introduced to Nord.
Oh, yes.
Question. Is his name Nord or is he the Nord?
In the credits for this movie, he is credited simply as Nord.
Okay, so it is his
is
name, not his label.
He's also described in the book as the Nord because he is very obviously of Nordic descent.
Yeah.
We are talking about long blonde hair, big eyebrows.
Big commanding eyebrows.
Like, he is basically the default character from a game of Skyrim.
yeah. This is a Vigo Carpathia, guy. That guy from Die Hard of Vigo from Ghostbusters. You're like, this guy fell off of a mountain somewhere.
This guy exudes danger.
And that's the thing, right? They had a whole thing about the Mariner coming in, and everyone's got like 100 questions for him. This guy, who we're gonna find out, is a smoker. Like, is able to chill at the bar all day, and no one's worried about him. Mm-hmm. And he's getting virtually free advice from people. You got that guy who's so desperate for the water, he'll walk right up to him and tell him all the news about the girl that he's clearly been looking for.
The fact that they have a character in this movie that is literally called the Hydroholic makes me think of Immortan Joe, and I'm like, dang, that crazy old guy was right. Water can take hold of you, and you can resent its absence to the point where you will sell out your neighbor.
When are you going to call up George again? And you're going to have him on and say, George, we got to talk about Waterworld. You're stealing from ideas from it. I love you, George, but I think, Mr. Miller, if you will, I think you've been stealing some ideas from Waterworld.
I'm seeing some parallels here that are just a little too convenient.
Miller's like, how are you talking about, Rick?
Oh, man. This poor Hydroholic. He's getting sold a raw deal because the Nord is taunting him by drinking out of glass, which is, I'm not sure it's actually a glass. I'm pretty sure they just cut the top off of a plastic water bottle.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's some Dasani.
That is way too green to be good. Like, it's slimy.
Yeah, it is. That is. I'm trying to think, like, is it cut with, like, maybe it's cut with, like, bits of algae to kind of cut back on the salt? Like, I don't know. Like, where do you get the green chloroform you look in? That chloroform.
We know that there are 2 quality levels when it comes to the water behind the bar. We'll learn that in weeks to come.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that there is a little bit of buildup because you can only wipe down a cup with a rag so many times before it starts to just be permanently dirty.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, is there a way for them to try to cut the water so it's like, all right, it gets half salt cut out of it, but we add in some kind of, like, pond scum from the water that might have a different flavor to kind of, like, make up for it. So you're, like, not just drinking straight tasting salt water. Like, something that makes it worth people to buy, you know?
I'm wondering if there's an algae that feeds on salt out of salt water. So if the salinity is not too dense, then the algae can actually make a difference. I wonder if that exists.
that is a logical step. We have a fish man, so like definitely biological life forms, if not existing right now in 2020, would in fact definitely exist in a future water world.
And algae are like super good at surviving.
Oh yeah.
So if something like that doesn't exist now, then it would have evolved to do so because there just isn't enough fresh water around for them to keep growing. So they would have to be like, okay, I'm okay with some salt water. Bring in some salt water. I can grow in that too.
Rick already looked this up before I even asked the question, but like, I know that they always try to find like biological life forms that can like eat plastic and trash. Cause like we just got trash floating out in the ocean. They're just like, man, we could just get some kind of algae to eat trash, boy. we like that, like, as you know, there's some capitalist that some company. It's like stonks, you know, like they get on trash eating algae.
There are bacteria that eat plastic.
Okay. I don't see why this cup couldn't be dyed green because someone brought in a blender that they changed to be a manual blender, and so they had seaweed smoothies.
Yeah, okay.
Or something along those lines. A green-based drink, and they served it in the glasses, and now the glasses are permanently tinged green.
That could be, right? Yeah, like, I mean, seaweed could have some properties that are like decent to ingest, I think, right? Maybe? I don't know.
Along these lines of algae that eats salt, they have discovered a bacteria that eats radiation.
Oh.
They found it in Chernobyl.
Ooh.
It's consuming the radiation in Chernobyl.
Oh man, that's that Godzilla shit.
Yeah, I'm very curious about what happens next.
Yeah, man. Oh, we gotta call Mark.
I think I remember seeing something along the lines of wild boars from the Chernobyl area wreaking havoc on Europe, or some headline to that effect.
Oh man. Well, they'll definitely talk about it in the new Stalker game. They'll definitely bring it up. They'll definitely be in scene like, Stalker, you must kill the wild boars. You're like, I'm on it.
That is a thing.
So this hydroholic, he brings up the subject of a girl with inkings on her back. This is the first time we've heard of it. It's going to be revealed in minutes down the road. But he describes that she's got inkings on her back. I seen her. They say if you read the marks on the child, they'll lead you all the way to dry land. And the Nord insists that dry land is a myth. We haven't talked about islands or continents or anything like that because we just assume from the opener that there is no land left. So it's interesting to, in this situation, hear that there are still people who believe that there is land out there somewhere.
I think it's inevitable that is something that people believe. Just like people naturally produce art in the form usually of jewelry, it's human nature. It's also human nature to have something to believe in and to have myths, a culture. So I think whether or not it's physically possible for there to be dry land, they are going to have myths about there being dry land because it's the thing that they lack.
Something to cling to.
Yeah. And looking at Greek mythology, a lot of Greek mythology is used to explain how something was created, how something works, the discovery of something. And they're doing the same thing. They don't have dry land, therefore there's a myth about dry land. It's inevitable.
I wonder if there's people in the theater at this point that were like, it's probably gonna be Mount Everest. And they're like leaning over like they're the first to think about it. Like, oh, well, you know, I know a lot about geography and I think it's gonna be Everest. And then they're like, well, I called it about a couple hours ago, no big deal. They're all like walking out of the theater. Everyone's like, yeah, we got it, Bob. We got it.
Yeah. In the extended edition, at the end when they reach dry land, there is a scene where they find a plaque saying that it's Mount Everest.
Yep.
I'm so glad they cut that.
Oh, you don't like it. I like it.
No, I think it's dumb. Because no kidding, this is Mount Everest. Where do people think they are? Like, okay, the characters, it's interesting for them to learn that this place has a name, but the name doesn't mean anything to them. That scene is for us. And we're like, yeah, where else were they going to be?
It's the cinematic equivalent of us getting to the end of the Planet of the Apes And Charlton Heston seeing the Statue of Liberty and being like, huh, that's interesting to look at. And we're sitting in the theater like, oh my God, he was on Earth the entire time. But if it meant nothing to him, it would be the same thing as the Everest plaque.
I will give you that it serves the same function of telling us that this is our planet, even though the opener physically showed us that it is our planet.
Yeah.
But it serves the same purpose of, hey, guess what? You were on Earth the whole time.
It would have been more surprising if the plaque said on this date, Glibglorp and Flizzleblob planted a flag, and it was like, oh no, this was an alien planet the whole time.
All right. I'm gonna agree. I want to agree with you, Julia. I agree that the plaque is a little on the nose, but I also feel like it's a criticism that there would have been cooler, smarter ways of doing that, hinting that this is Mount Everest. And here's an idea. Because the tents, I don't think are enough. I don't think those little tents. Because you're like,
things.
you know, I'm just a white guy who only speaks English. I don't know what language that is. I know it's somewhere of like Eastern Asian descent, but I don't know. I'm not certain. It could be. You could say, oh, this was actually one of like the Mongolian mountains outside China. I go, oh, okay, I believe it. But I wouldn't know. You say, oh, it's Tibet. Oh, okay, all right. Like you could say anything. I would agree with you. I think it would have been cool if there were hints of like mountain hiking gear it's like in a tree or like in the ground. I get it. Enough time had passed where it's not a mountain, it's more of a tropical island. But if there was some way to show
oxygen tanks everywhere.
Yeah, some kind of saying that like people were in mountain gear here a millennia ago, I think would have been so cool and hinted at that. Because I mean, I don't know, maybe it wasn't talked about in the 90s, but I definitely feel like nowadays everyone knows there's dead bodies at the top of Mount Everest, and it's just a fact of life.
You have to walk right past them.
Yeah. Because
that is a subject I find fascinating, and I've done a lot of reading on it. And when we get to the end, I get to talk about it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I'm excited.
So, but what do you think, though? In like 93, 94, do you think people like knew that as common knowledge? Like, oh yeah, there's just people went over there, they took a plane, and guess what? You know, that teacher that went over there that tried to conquer a thing, oh, they died. Oh, okay. You know?
I don't think it was as common knowledge. I think if this movie were made today, those details on Everest later on in the movie would be more appreciated. Because today we know we have a lot of like photographs and whatnot of all of the trash that gets left behind up there. We know about the bodies. In the past, people have attempted to retrieve the bodies and more people have died. So now we know if you die up there, you're staying up there. So I think in the 90s, that just wasn't really as common knowledge, general population.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, somehow you could, when they were in that little village, if there was some way to show hiking gear that's been repurposed. Like the hiking mountain things are, like the hiking boots are now like tree climbing boots or something. Like the way like guys climb telephone line poles.
Climbing hooks repurposed into agricultural tools.
Yes. I think that would have been a little bit more smarter and like would have been a more subtle nod rather than a plaque. I think because then it's Everest, but at least you know it's a mountain that people had hiked a long time ago, and that's good enough to go to bed on, rather than just hit them with the plaque. So, long story short, we're back to this part where it's just a map and we don't know what. And do you think, was it weird to be like, that's our plot point, a girl has a tattoo? Or is that maybe that was the hook of like the original guy who wrote the first draft of this was like, what if a tattoo had a map?
So the tattoo is something that has existed through many iterations of this story. In the 91 screenplay that I read, the tattoo is actually a lot harder to decipher. Here in this movie, you've got the circle, you've got the drawing of the mountain on the top, you've got the arrow pointing to the mountain, and then a lot of text that's not in English. In the original screenplay, it's a crescent shape, what looks like a crescent moon, and then it's got a little triangle cut out of it. And the whole idea is that you have to look at the moon during an eclipse and the shadow of Everest will cast a triangular shadow on the eclipse.
Woof.
It's very strange and probably way more complicated than it really needed to be.
Yeah.
Which is why they redesigned it to how it is now, where it's basically, oh, hey, yeah, look, this is a mountain. And if you could read this script, you could probably have, all right, go this way for this many miles or whatever, turn here. Like, if you could read this script, you can probably find dry land in no time flat.
I have lots more thoughts.
We should probably wait until we actually see the tattoo, though.
Yeah. For when we actually see the tattoo.
I gotta wait weeks to hear about it.
Yep.
Damn it. I want all the secrets now.
The important detail that the Hydraholic follows this up with is that the smokers possibly have an eye to find this little girl, and the Nord, not being suspicious at all or tipping off the audience in the slightest, says, well then, we better keep it to ourselves. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I'm the smoker spy.
And that's when he offers her the water, because now it's like, we are in agreement. I'll give you this water, and you keep it under your hat, your little hairnet hat.
Mm-hmm. Because as we know, rumors fly around this atoll like wildfire because no one can keep their mouth shut about the dirt.
Because, by the way, I didn't realize till just now, he is wearing a hair hat net because he's bald.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to have hair because your scalp's going to get cooked. Because you ain't got no tree coverage in Waterworld, baby.
Oh, yep. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, that's clearly like a bunch of hair that he was able to get, and he just has it hair netted on because he just is bald.
There are some choice hats in this movie.
There are. And you know what? This reinforces from a few minutes ago, the guy with the long white hair who wanted to trade it for just a glass of water. The gatekeeper and whoever, they had a little conversation of, hey, he does have some pretty good hair. You can go trade it if you want, but he doesn't get to come inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the side, that what they call the side barter or something like that. It must have been like at the, it was like, I guess they have like a little counter. Like,
yeah.
Hello? There's
little
no
drive-through window.
Yeah, the guy's got like snippers and a cup of water. Sip, sip, sip. Drink your water. All right, thank you. Close business.
Because that hair can be useful to make
all
hats
sorts of things.
Of certain kinds.
Next week, you're probably going to bang out when he's asking about fishing line, and she's like, we got hair.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's like, if you're able to, oh my God, that's got to be a job. Someone has to, like, fuse hair together to make rope.
Like,
think
weaving
about
it
that
together. That sounds awful.
Yeah.
That sounds
Take hair
awful.
and be like, there's fishing line, there's a net, there is like that. Like, probably that hair net is made of hair, and they made it binding, so then he could just put a little toupee on. So, because it's probably somehow that was cheaper than a hat for that Hydraholic. He's like, I don't take the hair net. Hat.
He's a Hydraholic. At one point, he probably had a lot of chits, and he spent it all on water, and now he is destitute in the bar, trading secrets for water. And that hat is the most expensive thing he still owns, but he won't give it up because of vanity.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Yeah. He probably had a really cool hat, too. He had like a nice brimmed hat, and it just, the Hydro got to him.
We're layering so many new aspects on these characters that are on screen for minutes.
So does that mean people who have like good hair, quality hair, have a commodity to trade?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. For one, I would do great in Waterworld then because I have a lot of thick hair that grows fast.
There you go.
Bane of my existence. Two, does that mean that Helen, who has a lot of long hair, is that a sign of prosperity that she has not had to cut off her hair to sell it?
She runs the trading post. That's a pretty prosperous position.
Yeah.
Then why isn't everybody like shorn?
Because you need to grow out your hair to a certain length before you cut it off. It's a way that you can make
functional length.
It's a way that you can make sure that your hair rope has less joins to it before you get a full strand, I guess.
I'm not sure that this society is properly using the renewable resource of hair.
I never see much beards either. No one's really got beards. Everyone's got like 5 o'clock shadows. No one's got beards. No one's like doing anything with the beard. Like the beard could be like some kind of sweat gland catcher to make into water or something. No one's done anything. I don't see anything with that here at the atoll.
Their way of life is dying. There's no two ways
They could
about
be
it.
doing better.
Yep.
I know you're gonna bring this up. We got a shot of his boots. Are those hiking? What are these boots? Are these supposed to be old hiking boots? You think?
Oh, they're ski boots.
Yeah, those are the ski boots.
That's the word.
That he
Ski
fished
boots.
out of the water. Yeah.
Which makes sense because he probably easily got to it because he went to an underwater mountain.
Mm-hmm.
That there was he found ski boots there.
Yep. And he had some skis and some ski poles.
And a thigh master.
And a thigh master.
Son of a bitch.
Because what do you do when you've been skiing all day? You go back to the ski lodge and you use a thigh master.
What are his pants, though? I'm trying to make sense of what his pants are. Are they, like, they're strips, but...
Oh, we haven't really talked about that at all.
Let's talk pants. Pants talk.
I just assume that whenever you see patched together clothing like this, it's tanned fish skin.
Yeah.
To make some sort of fish leather.
All right. Yeah. Maybe there's so many strips because it also could be like eel or something.
Yeah, when you've got sharks that are so big that you can hang them off of a pier and the ribs are the size of your arm, that's a lot of skin that you can strip off and treat.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah. I'm looking at a bit of a close-up of his vest, and there is definitely a texture to it that is reminiscent of some sort of sea creature.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily scaly, but something.
It's something, all right. That brings us to the end of this chunk of minutes, though. Dave, it's always good when two podcasters meet on the open ocean of the internet for something to be exchanged.
Oh, yeah.
We've given you airtime, so I think it's only right that you give us back some plugs so that people can find your stuff on the internet.
Yeah, sure. I'm still just plugging along, almost done my cruise of 5 Minutes of Mystery, where I talk about the 1999 superhero comedy ensemble Mystery Men. Obviously, a couple, way long ago in the before times, I did Groundhog Day with Sean German. We did Groundhog Minute because everybody is blogging about it now. So it's like, man, they're talking about Groundhog Day, but we talked about Groundhog Day before, like we were living it. Now everybody's living it, and I'm like, I don't know what else there's to say. Like we covered it. I mean, we mostly covered diner food. I'll agree. Like we spent so much time on blueberry waffles, and people are like, yeah, but what if we're in a pandemic where we sit here, we talk about the same things, and we're in a circle, and politically we're unsure of things. Well, yeah, I guess there's that too. So yeah. So long story short, 5 Minutes of Mystery. Talk about some superhero comedies.
Spectacular. As for Waterworld, when we come back next week, it is time for the mariner to spend those hard-earned chits at the Atoll's only trading post.
Hey, baby.
And come face-to-face with the woman who will change his life. The Mad Max Minute podcast is a fan project by Rick and Julia Ingham.
Waterworld was written by Peter Rader and David Toohey, directed by Kevin Reynolds, and presented by Universal Pictures.
Mad Max Minute is produced and edited by Rick Ingham. Our opening music is Verdi's Dies Irae by Daniel Batista of danielbatista.com.
Our home on the internet is madmaxminute.com.
You can follow us on Twitter at MadMaxMinute.
And like us on Facebook by searching Mad Max Minute and join our Facebook listener group, Mad Max Minute Beyond Microphone.
If you'd like to support the podcast, visit patreon.com/MadMaxMin.
Thank you for joining us for Waterworld Episode 8. We'll see you next time.